Welcome, everyone. I'm Silken Laumann, and I'm just delighted today that I'm having a conversation with another athlete. And it's not an Olympic athlete, it's not a rower, but actually an NFL running back, Prince Daniels Jr. Played for the Baltimore Ravens for 3 years, and he is just an amazing person, an individual who's passionate about mental health, about wellness, about helping people be the best version of themselves. He considers himself a high performance mentor, which I just love that idea. I think we could all use that in our life. He's also the founder of a kind of a workshop, a program called Beyond the Game. He has his own foundation for life BU, or I think the acronym is 4LBU Foundation, that helps young people access the best version of themselves and learn everything from financial literacy to wellness and meditation. So here's a guy who has been an athlete and has an athlete mindset his whole life. And then, he gets an injury and has been playing at the top of his game just 3 years into his professional career, and bam, he has to stop. So we're going to talk about that. I hope that we have lots of athletes and coaches and people involved, parents, who have kids that are involved in sport today, because we're going to talk about the pressures of the game. We're going to talk about, life and the person who is an athlete, because I think one of the things that we have to remember about athletes, and maybe we're learning a little bit more because it's been in the media recently, that athletes are people first. We're performers, we're high achievers, but we're people first. And I think that Prince has definitely taken that approach to his life. And one of the things that I love what he's doing is he's helping athletes make the transition to their life after sport. It's something that would have been so helpful for me 30 years ago when I stopped being a high performance Olympian and moved into life after sport. We weren't having these conversations back then, were we? So let's welcome Prince Daniels Jr. And thank you so much for joining our show today. My audio, Silken?
Okay. Yes. Sorry, I'm here. I was on mute. Sorry. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Silken, and unsinkable community. Like, I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Let's start by talking about you. I really want to hear a little bit about, I think one of the things that, of course, is very kind of eye-catching when you read about you is that you finished football, which is, I think by all accounts, a pretty intense, high-performance, rough and tumble game. And you started to meditate. I think you actually worked in a monastery. How the heck did that happen?
Yeah, I went and lived at a monastery. So I played 3 incredible years in the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens, and my career ended because of injuries. Not more of a career-ending injury, but more of on paper, on stats. It looked like I was injury prone. So after my career was over, uh, every athlete goes through this. We have an identity crisis. We experience that, meaning we are looking to figure out who we are beyond the game. And a lot of times we don't know who we are beyond the game. Even if we did know who we were before the game, it seems like after the game, you still lose your identity. So I
Yeah.
experienced this identity crisis. And then after the identity crisis, um, I went through some difficult times: depression, suicidal ideation, suicide commitment,
Wow.
plan for suicide, all of the above. And luckily, I had been attending the monastery before I went into the NFL. And the reason why I went there was to get that edge, get that competitive edge, and separate myself from the competition. But once I got injured, uh, meditation was the one thing that I had to lean upon. It was my last lifeline. So, uh, luckily, unfortunately for me, I had two uncles who were already attending the monastery. So I just followed in their footsteps and I started visiting the monastery. And um, from one point to another, um, I really became more enlightened about life and starting to understand the principles of life, and also just became more whole. You hear the saying, people
Mhm.
become more holier than thou. Well, I just became whole, and that
Yeah.
was the beauty of me going to go and spend time at the monastery. That's how I got there.
And do you remember thinking, I'm trying, as somebody who was a four-time Olympian, somebody who lived and breathed sport for a long time, kind of imagining that jump, right? So you're in this mindset, you're high performance, in a way, I think as an athlete, your life becomes very narrow, and you start to hang out with other athletes. It's the first thing you think of when you get up in the morning. At least it was for me, and the last thing you think about when you go to sleep at night. And I think that's true even for high school athletes, even for college athletes. It's a very consuming thing. And then to make the leap and say, I'm going to try meditation. I'm going to live in a monastery. Like, like I'm trying to. So it sounds like, in a way, your entry point was that you were desperate. You needed something that was going to help you. You were kind of, I don't want to say rock bottom. You were in a bad place.
No, you said it correctly, and I don't mind being vulnerable. I did hit rock bottom. In my mind, perception is everything. And so I saw myself hitting rock bottom in terms of measuring my success, with my peers and my other teammates. And so when the vision that I have for myself did not pan out, yes, I hit the panic button. I was just trying to figure out what's going on, what's next. And then when I was released from the team, I didn't know what to do next. I didn't have many mentors, and mentors, coaches,
Mm-hmm.
friendships, relationships are very important. And
Mm-hmm.
so since I isolated myself because I
Mm-hmm.
really didn't have that much emotional intelligence, I didn't know how to navigate myself throughout,
Yeah.
life. And I was desperate. I was really desperate because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you're not breathing, then you're considered deceased, right? And if you're breathing, you're considered alive. And so, at this point in time, I was willing to hurt myself because I felt that I had lost it all. And so, I was clutching,
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I grew up religiously in the church, but uh, I felt that I needed to make a deeper connection. And I didn't know what that looked like or how that felt. I just knew that there was something inside of me saying, go to the monastery, give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard the calling and I
Yeah.
went. And
Yeah.
I was happy that I was able to listen to my intuition with all the turmoil that was going on.
Yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit later in our conversation about spirituality and the place it has in our lives, and athletes' lives too. But I think, when you talk about being an athlete, and there's a mindset and almost like a personality profile of people who become the best in the world at something. And it often gets very meshed with our identity, right? And it does at a pretty young age. So, I mean, I think, those listeners that are listening right now and have 15-year-olds, okay, that's a place in life where you're having an identity crisis. Like every 15-year-old in the world is having an identity crisis, right?
Right.
but
Yeah.
but usually, as you kind of move through your teen years, in your 20s, you start to get a better sense of who you are, and it's just life that teaches you. But I think, in a way, sport keeps you in sort of a very isolated silo, and maybe kind of works against, to a degree, asking those deeper questions around who we are,
Correct.
um, what has meaning in our life, what our values are,
Mhm.
and what you just said earlier about um, not really having a plan, an identity, like having an identity crisis.
Right.
I think it's true actually for pretty well every athlete I've met. And then you combine that with the intensity of their personality, that often, people, like, you don't become a world champion, as I was in rowing, without being pretty darn intense and focused, and, be able to block everything out,
Correct.
which is a great attribute in sport. Sometimes in life, it can be a little more challenging when you've got kids and career and all of these other things. So, I'm kind of, I guess what I want to say is, like, for me, my entry point was a little different than yours. I didn't enter through meditation, but it was actually yoga in my life that was like the entry point to that kind of, maybe it's not all about performing. Maybe it's not all about achieving and having a bunch of medals in my, sock drawer. Maybe life needs to be defined a little bit differently. And I think that a lot of us, especially young athletes that become, college athletes that then maybe become Olympic athletes, there's a delay in that awareness of those questions. Who am I? What is my purpose? Where am I going?
Right. You said it. You said that those are some big questions, and they are, for someone that's in a narrow mindset. And the mindset is go full speed in this direction and outwork the next person, be the best person, wake up every morning, do all the other things that no one else is doing. Your competition is not sleep, they are awake. And so that drives you, right? And so just think about driving a car. Whenever you're driving a car, it's going to be very hard to make a right-hand turn if you're going 100 miles per hour. You have to slow down, right? And make that right turn. And a lot of times we don't know what it means to slow down, right? Even after the game is over, we're still like, we got to go 100 miles per hour because this is what I was taught. This is what I was conditioned to do. And that does help, but it also can hinder you because the pace that you are going, that the pace that you're at when it comes to life, from sports to life, it slows down dramatically. And when it slows down, we don't know how to adjust, how to adapt. And so for people like yourself, people like myself, what I want to share with you is that yoga and meditation are the same thing. Actually, meditation was called yoga before. And what that means, yoga and meditation, is union with the self. And so through yoga, as it is explained today, it's more of our connection with our body and our mind and our spirit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the exact same thing with meditation. It's just either do moving meditation or be still. And either way it goes, you're still connecting with yourself. You're uniting your mind, your body, and your spirit, your energies, your emotions. And
you're quieting, you're quieting that monkey mind, that mind that's always chattering, and like even just getting some realization. Like I think I remember the moment I realized, like, I'm not my mind, which sounds like so meditation 101, but I'm like, okay, if I can hear my mind talking, then who is it that sees my mind talking, right? And that's
right.
like, and a lot of people, a lot of athletes, and just type A people start yoga with Ashtanga yoga, which is like yoga for athletes, right? Because it's really fast and it's athletic and it's like, and that's how I started yoga. This really fast moving yoga, and then of course I've been practicing for almost 20 years now. And I really understand. There's actually 8 limbs of yoga, and only one of them is the asanas. Only one of them are the postures. There's meditation. There's pranayama, breath work. There's service. There's all of these different elements. I want to talk just for a minute about being an athlete again, because I know there's a lot of our listeners have young athletes in their lives. They're coaches. They're thinking about this, and I'm older than you. I competed I went from the 1984 Olympics to the 1996 Olympics, 4 Olympic Games. And at that time, I got to tell you, there was no way we were going to have a conversation about mental health.
Right.
It just wasn't going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It was like, you're an athlete, you have pressure, you perform, you know, and it the mindset was, you know what, it's our training program that separates the winners and the losers. And
Right.
it really was honestly that black and white. And I still think that mindset is out there in sports. Look at Simone Biles this summer, who I think, oh, I mean, you know, I just want to like bow down to her right now and what she
Right.
has done on the most public of stages. Um, so much courage,
Yes.
because when you're living and working in the area of wellness and mental health, I mean, you start to just take for granted that people are progressive in their thinking around what mental health. But when Simone did that, when she pulled out of the competition, and she did get backlash, she got some really nasty. Not the people weren't nasty, but their thoughts and their messages were nasty, and she just held her head high and owned it. So for coaches today, for athletes, for people in high performance, I think it's almost like our last bastion of, you know, opening the door and saying, you can be and address and talk about and work through your mental health while being a high performance athlete. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. So I think it's a beautiful phenomenon how it's starting to rise to the surface level, and it's starting to be spoken about uh, more than once. You know, we're gaining a level of awareness and consciousness of mental health, and life is about balance. And for me, I share with everyone about mastering the balance between your power and your peace. Now,
Mhm.
when it comes to Simone and all these other athletes, you know, your power is your ability to do what you are there to do. Your skills, all your attributes that you pretty much focus and concentrated on by refining them. You know, and the peace is pretty much like the unknown, but also being able to be vulnerable, being able to allow yourself to acknowledge where you are in life, because you said it several times that we are human beings before we are athletes, right? And so that's with anybody. Every single one of us is a human being, and we have that in common. But whenever you become an athlete, or you dub yourself as an athlete, it seems like you lose you lose that human touch, because we are isolated. We're put on a pedestal, and we're regaled for all of the accomplishments. And so a lot of people don't get a chance to see us as human beings. They see us as superhuman beings, right? But the reality of it is, I was proud of Simone when she did exactly what she did. I was, you know, so excited, so elated, because she had that stage. And at that moment, she chose that. And what that did for our consciousness state of the world was really have some level of empathy, compassion. You know, even though, you know, she got these whatever text message or these crude sayings from, you know, fans, it didn't matter. That's what comes with the territory. You know, when you stand up for something that you believe in, and some people are going to say something, but you have to understand that you need to be grounded, because if you're not grounded and uh, you're not rooted in who you are, you're definitely going to allow yourself to break down. And when you break down, no one is going to say anything, because, you know, when it comes to mental health, it's like an invisible injury, right? You get a physical injury, everyone feels some type of sympathy because they can see the injury. That's like, oh, I'm so sorry. But when it comes to the mental side of things, or mental injury, it's not, you're not able to see it with the eyes, with the
Mm-hmm.
physical eyes. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lack of empathy and a lack of compassion. And so when she stood up and she did what she did and she returned, it just made you want to hug her and love her more, because it's like, yes, you found your strength. And where she found her strength is in her peace. And she was able to balance and manage her power and her peace. And she came back and she won the bronze medal. I was like, wow. Like, so uh, we can do some incredible things when we start prioritizing what's important in life, right? If Simone is not there mentally, if she's not there physically, we would not be praising her, right?
Yeah,
But
I love that some of these athletes today are having a deeper conversation. Prince, a few minutes ago, you said, you're not afraid to be vulnerable.
yeah,
I mean, again, like 5 years ago, would athletes be saying that? But you got Michael Phelps. I mean, here in Canada, we had this incredible multiple Olympic gold medal speed skater, cyclist, Claire Hughes, who stood
yeah,
up in front of the entire country and said, not only do I suffer from a mental illness, but I'm going to raise money and awareness for this entire country. And she did that 8 years ago. So if we want to stop being two-dimensional as athletes, I think there is, I don't want to say responsibility, but we have an opportunity to have deeper kinds of conversations and to talk, beyond those ridiculous press conferences that, and you know a lot about this, right? That
yes,
that has just developed over the culture of the way that sport has been covered. How was a game and what were you feeling that, and like to have deeper conversations about how we're doing as human beings. And there might be some people that say, well, do we care? Do we just want to watch our game? But I actually don't think so. I think what makes a game exciting is understanding the athletes in
yeah,
that game. I mean, how much more exciting is it to watch an athlete who's overcome adversity, and then you watch them. I'm going to use the Olympic stage here, but you watch them overcome injury, overcome trauma, whatever it is, and then like win the gold medal. And like it's awesome that they win the gold medal, but it's because you understand their story that
yes,
you're so much more invested, because ultimately most people can't really relate to being like the best in the world
right,
in a sport, but they can relate to adversity. They can relate to carrying sadness and shame and how difficult it is to embrace change and all of these things that athletes today are doing. Um,
yes. We are innately connected to characters, whether it's in a movie, whether it's in sports, whether it doesn't matter. Like we enjoy the underdogs, we enjoy the champions, and we want to live through them vicariously. And so, whenever we hear someone's story, we buy into it, and we like, that's who I'm rooting for. Like let's go, you got it. And when they overcome adversity and they win, it's a part of you that overcomes adversity and you win as well. And so that is what we gravitate to
mhm,
automatically. And so
mhm.
it's hard for you not to get involved in those things. So that's why we are here, to either root them on, but sometimes a lot of people just want to be entertained, and we understand that as well. But as an athlete, you have to understand who you are and find some groundmanship, be able to
Yeah,
ground yourself,
yeah.
have a foundation and root yourself. So then that way, when you're in your game, whether win, lose, or draw, you don't lose yourself after the results.
Yeah. Yeah. And Prince, I think something, I agree with you 100%. I thought something that you said that I just thought was beautifully articulated, was the idea of power and peace. Um, because I think too many coaches, particularly, and we're having a real crisis in coaching in Canada around things like safe sport, um, coaches that are kind of old school, trying to figure out the culture today where mental health is part of the culture, and everybody's kind of trying to educate themselves, and it's not happening fast enough. But I mean, I think just that idea of looking after both our power, right, which is, I think, really for me as an athlete, was where I was strong. I was just so much power, and it was later that I found the peace.
Mm,
But the idea that as coaches, we can start developing these young athletes right from the beginning to thinking about the both elements. And it's almost like an Ayurvedic principle where you're thinking like we're wind, we're fire, we're earth, we're water, we're all of these different elements that make us whole.
Right.
We have to have the power, but if we don't have the peace, we might, double false start at the starting gates, or, drop the ball because our hands are too slippery with sweat. Like, you gotta have it both. So how do you teach that? And how can we teach young athletes, and particularly, let's like actually turn it around for a bit, like how can our coaches learn this?
When it comes to coaches, they have to find centeredness within themselves. Meaning, because a lot of times coaches carry their
baggage
moments whenever they fall short, their baggage, exactly. So, moments where they fell short and they feel that they need to project, the attitude that they've developed, that if I was still playing, I would have done this. So now they take that into coaching. And when they have an athlete that they believe in, they want to push every single thing that they've learned into the athlete. And instead of actually analyzing the athlete, understanding their trigger points, and knowing how to coach them. So it's more of them removing some of their emotional intelligence, removing their emotions, gaining control of their emotions. And then from there, really understanding like these moments and who you're dealing with in terms of the athlete and how you can push them. I mean, having these open communications, it's like, this is my coaching style, but how would you like for me to coach you? Would you like for me to scream and shout at you, or would you like for me to communicate with you and speak to you thoroughly? What type of athlete are you? Are you a good listener? Or are you a great at visualizing? Like, how do we get the best out of you without condemning you, without minimizing you, without berating you? And so that's where the coaches start. So when it comes to the players, the youth, just developing a practice of mindfulness and like doing it every day, even though it may not seem cool, you may not understand it, but having a practice that you can do consistently every day allows for you to create space for yourself and within your mind to have the right mindset to be successful. Because life happens, but you're not always supposed to push through life. Sometimes, you can breathe through life. Because if you're breathing, you are aware that you are alive. And when you are aware that you're alive, you are aware that you can make change. And so when it comes to the younger athletes, just learn about the most simple thing, your breath, and learning how to hold your focus on something that you want to accomplish. And when you can continue to keep doing that over and over and over again, something within you grows and it matures, and you start to gain a better perspective on how you're going to accomplish these things. And you're not going to get distracted by the things that's not heading in a direction of where your goal is.
Spiritual work in some ways is a hard sell for people because it's experiential, right? So we learn to find that peace. We learn that quietness through practice in order to actually notice how things are changing inside ourselves. I mean, that doesn't happen after one meditation session. It happens, week after week, day after day, month after month. And then you're like me, and like 20 years later, you're like, wow, I'm a different person than I was 20 years ago. And yeah, I've done lots of counseling. I've done like lots of other things, but I actually think this breath work that I've been doing in my yoga practice has something to do with it. Yeah. So, I'd say that for those people who are listening, and I hear it all the time, well, I'm not into meditation, people getting confused with the idea that, meditation is some sort of religion or yoga is some sort of religion, which I didn't know people actually thought that. I mean, it's a practice. It's a physiological thing that you do that actually can become spiritual because, actually, maybe you can define for me what you sort of, how how you articulate spirituality and mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So I'll speak about meditation first, and I'll say that meditation is not a religion. It's not a philosophy or a lifestyle change. It is a practice that allows you to access a level of focus, awareness, concentration, compassion, and this exists in every single individual all over the world at all times. So when it comes to wanting to learn about you and wanting to improve yourself and be the best version of yourself, you almost have to go back to your origin, your beginnings. See, we come into this world and we come into this world with a set religion, a set way of thinking because of our environment. You know, it influences us, it molds us, it molds and the way that we think about things. And if you can think about it, like you are spiritual before you actually come into this world, before you are given a religion. You're coming from a spiritual place into like into a womb, and then you are delivered. You come, so like first and foremost, we're spiritual beings enjoying this human experience. And so when you can put that in perspective, you start to realize that it doesn't cost you anything to close your eyes and sit and contemplate and ponder on your thoughts. And you don't have to be influenced by anything or motivated by anything because it's inside of you. So the way that I explain spirituality and mindfulness and meditation and mind, body, and spirit to people is that we all become inspired by something. And if you understand about the word inspiration or inspire, it comes from the root word of two words, and that's in and spirit. And we understand that our spirit is inside of us. So when you are inspired or you inspire someone, you are using your internal spirit to move them because we all share a spirit. And we can all agree upon that. And so what you are doing, you're looking to reach your highest good, no matter what you are in life. Everybody wants happiness. Everybody wants to experience prosperity. Everybody wants to experience joy. Everybody wants to experience financial freedom. Everyone wants to experience, just a happy and blissful life. And in order for that to happen, you have to align yourself with your highest good, with doing those good deeds, making sure that we speak up for the ones that are unable to speak. Like Naomi Osaka, right? She's not from America, but she spoke up for the whole world from her country in Japan, representing her country in Japan. And these are the things that make you a good person. It helps you reach your higher good. And so when we practice these things, the reason why we work out is because we want to feel healthy. The reason why we practice mental things and we get education and we enhance our intelligence is because we want to feel intelligent or smart, and we want to be able to articulate ourselves. And the reason why we practice mindfulness and meditation because we want to feel whole, not holier than thou, but whole, understanding who you are, why you're here, what's your life's purpose. So then that way you can walk with intent and you can move in a direction that is so fierce and so focus driven that there is no room for any distractions. And anything that happens along your path, it's like you've experienced deja vu because you've seen your vision before. And so explaining spirituality to me is just telling people that you got to think of it. You are a magnet and you are attracting all the things that you want, all the things that you desire. And so whenever you start to sit down or you move, but you create a union within yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, what you are doing, you're connecting to your inner G, not your ENERGY, but your inner G, your INNER capital G, your inner genius, your inner good, your inner greatness, all of the above.
Love it.
Yes.
Love
And
it.
so that's what this life is about. And that's what spirituality is about.
You know, it occurs to me listening to you and just through the work we do at Unsinkable and Unsinkable Youth. It's a lot about this, and I think it's particularly true for athletes. It's about taking everything out of their box. You know, everything's in its own little box. I'm an athlete, and therefore I do this and this. I'm a business person, and then I this, and oh, this is a spiritual person, and you know they do yoga and meditate, and this, you know, this is a person who's an intellectual. They're professors, and it's like, no, actually, we are mind, body, spirit. I mean, I go out and move my body because it makes me feel great, and it gives me energy, and it gives me clarity of mind, and it makes me feel also more peaceful. It helps me sleep. I mean, there's such an interrelated and connectiveness. And when it comes to athletes, which what we're talking about today, there's still so much fear, I think. And I think for coaches, when they see an athlete struggling, and they're suspecting they're struggling mentally, you know, I think there's this fear of Pandora's box. Like, oh my gosh, if I ask this person how he's doing, you know, the box is going to open. It's going to be like, you know, it's going to be a show, and it's not going to be pretty, right? And I relate to that thinking because, you know, as I said in the very beginning of this podcast, I mean, we didn't even talk about this in my day. Like you know, you were an athlete, then you got better and better, and then you were, you know, defending your world championship title, and the eyes of the world were on you, and you couldn't screw up, and like the idea that in there somewhere was mental health, like, no. And I think there are people that would love to keep it that way, but as I also said, and we both said in the beginning of the podcast here, is that, you know, but athletes are people first, and it seems to me that we could benefit a heck of a lot from just, you know, taking down the walls of all these boxes and say, you know what, we are human beings. We are spiritual, physical, emotional human beings. And I got a question from one of our listeners today. He's like, okay, this sounds great, but where do I start? If I want to start meditating, like, how do you even do it?
Well, one, stay to the end. I'll be able to share a meditation practice with you. And two, where do you start? You start where you are right now at this moment. So when it comes to practicing meditation, if you're practicing meditation for the first time, I have the perfect analogy, okay? Whenever you're looking to get stronger, you usually go to a gym. And so you start lifting weights. So when you go into the weight room, if you decide to lift 225 pounds, your very first time of going to the gym, and you struggle with that 225 pounds, I guarantee you about 9 times out of 10, you're not coming back the next day or the next week because you struggled with something and it was your first time. So you created this notion that this is not for me. Now, when you hear we should practice meditation for 5 minutes, you know, that's people's entry point. 5 minutes. 5 minutes is too long. It's the same analogy as going to the gym and trying to lift all the weights. I suggest seconds. And the reason why I suggest seconds because we measure our time by seconds. Right? And so it's 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. And so the job for you is to, whenever you practice meditation, you want to be able to be fully immersed in those moments, in that time. So you want to be able to focus your mind on either one thing or be able to focus your mind on observing all of your thoughts that are just passing by. And the only thing is, when your thoughts are passing by, a lot of times we want to cling on to them like, whoa, oh yeah, and that. And so you have to be able to focus your mind to be able to let those thoughts just pass. It's almost like sitting at a riverbank and you're watching the water pass. But if a leaf or something gets into the water, you try to go out your way to remove that leaf when you can just let it pass.
Mhm.
So allow yourself to start with 10 seconds and just focus on just your breathing, becoming aware of your breath, how you inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And that's very simple. And after you accomplish that for 10 seconds, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to improve. And you're going to be like, okay, 10 seconds, let me do 30 seconds because I felt that I've already accomplished 10 seconds. So now you accomplish 30 seconds. So now let's accomplish 60 seconds. And when you accomplish 60 seconds, what is that? What does that equate to? 1 minute. And so now you've just learned how to create a step in practicing your mindfulness and practicing your meditation. And so you start
Yeah.
wherever you are.
You
Always
start
give
wherever you are. Yeah.
Start wherever you are and increments. Don't go into the weight room trying to lift all the weights.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah,
with the smaller
that's a great
weights,
analogy. Yeah.
and then you grow, and then your muscles grow. And same thing with your mind muscle. Same thing with your spirituality. It grows as well. But when you try to go in and do everything all at once, you're going to fail at it over and over again. So that's where you start.
No, that's beautiful, and I think you've actually started to answer a question from one of our listeners who is asking about being marginalized and isolated due to long-term injury and kind of housebound and like, do we have any advice for him or her? And I would say just to build on what Princess said, yeah, start from where you are. There's amazing resources online and on apps around meditation and yoga and breath work, and it's so different than it was 20 years ago. You really can. It's a world of opportunity as far as knowledge goes. But I also, I do think people are feeling isolated these days. Obviously, we've been living through a pandemic, and some of
Right.
us are doing better than others.
Right.
I guess my suggestion around being isolated is, to ask people for help, to let people in your life, whether they're relatives or friends, or, let them know that you are feeling isolated. And I think that's a great place to even acknowledge it. And I have had that in my life before where, I've isolated myself. It's very easy to do, particularly in the pandemic. There are always people, I think in life we find our people, but it can take a long time, right? It can take a long time to find your tribe, to find the people that you mesh most with. And I always say to my kids, I've got 4 of them, and they're all really different. You're going to find your people, you're going to find your community. So look for community, look for an online community. If you're housebound, join something, whether like it's a chess club or a running group, something that connects you to other people.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so true. And I agree 100%. And I also agree with see isolation as a good thing.
Mhm.
A lot of times we see isolation as something that's bad. And as I mentioned before, it's all about perception. And so when you can see isolation as something that's good, your mindset starts to change. You start to alter your mindset. You start to become aware of who you are, because it's okay to be isolated. Because when you are isolated, you actually have to go through those hard times. You have to face yourself. Right. And it seems like that's the most difficult thing to do, because we are angry at ourselves for not being able to perform in the way that we envisioned it. We are angry because we came up short, or our plan did not pan out. And so then the result of that is that we get mad at ourselves, and then we beat up on ourselves, and we continue to keep beating up on ourselves because the results did not match the desire. And so
Mhm.
whenever you're isolated, be grateful for being able to be isolated for those moments. I know it seems like it's a oxymoron. It's difficult. But I always say this: would you rather be miserable and living your life, or would you rather be in joy or happy living your life? Because we can spend a lot of time complaining about something, but whether you complain about something whether it's good or bad, just do it and have an optimistic and positive mindset. And I hear a lot of people say, I don't have the optimistic mindset, or I'm a pessimistic. Like, that's good, but you believe in something. And so you're striving towards something. And so when you're striving towards something, you have to have a level of focus, a level of faith, a level of ability to see it through and envision it. And so the stronger your vision is, the stronger that your energy is, that your cultivated energy becomes. And you will start allowing yourself to uh, be okay with being in isolation, because there's going to be a time when you're not going to be isolated anymore, and you're going to be surrounded by everyone, and you're going to be like, oh man, I missed my isolation. So, like, if we can find gratitude in these things that we always look at in a negative manner, in a negative way, then you'll start to see how a lot of things start to warp your perspective, and you start to
Yeah.
see through a lens of like, I'm grateful to be isolated for this moment in time. You know what? Because when I get back and when I have my opportunity, whether it's in a sport, whether it's in my business, whether it's in life, you're going to take advantage of it because you appreciated those moments. And that's what life is about.
That's beautiful. For those of you who kind of are just joining us along the way, I'm speaking to Prince Daniels Jr. He was a NFL running back for the Baltimore Ravens. He's just a super interesting person, a mindfulness and ultimate athlete, workshopper. He's written a book. Is your book called Beyond the Game, or is that your workshop?
So, okay, I'll break it down for you. My book is called Mindfulness for the Ultimate Athlete:
Okay.
Mastering the
There it is.
Balance Between Power and Peace.
Awesome.
I have an energy workshop series where I help people get out of their own way. I work with elite athletes and high performers, but anybody can take my workshop. It's every other Saturday, and the next Saturday I'll be having a workshop. It's 2 hours long, and basically I cover 5 ways of managing your emotions, 3 ways of how to create a powerful mindset, and the last one is overcoming fear. And
Mm.
so all of these workshops help you overcome your debilitating thoughts, overcome the mindset that you have, and create a different perspective and a different vantage point. And
Yeah.
then I have my business where I work with my other business where I work with athletes. It's called Game Beyond the Game, helping
Okay.
athletes find their purpose and their vision, and we create the mindset to help you see that through.
We are having such a fun and interesting conversation today, about mental health, but really about being human. And we're talking specifically about being an athlete, being young athletes, and that pressure to perform, balancing that power and peace within ourselves, as you so aptly put it. Today's talk kind of made possible by our sponsor, Good Life Fitness, and Unsinkable, who's sponsored by Sun Life. We're so grateful that they're able to bring us all together today. But I thought a really powerful way to end is actually we talked earlier about how a lot of this stuff you just got to do it, right? It's like trying to explain to somebody what it feels like to ride a bike, or you just got to get on the bike and you got to do it. So would you mind leading us through a little meditation as we end our time together today?
I do not. I do not. Thank you for this opportunity and to be able to share this. I've been practicing mindfulness meditation for 12 years plus. And I'm just, in the beginning, I was very passionate about it, but now I am the passion. And there's a difference. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a space for you. So that way you can get into the practice of your meditation. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start off with the one thing that I always teach people is relax. But you hear the word relaxation or you hear relax, but a lot of us, right? Relax, but we don't even know how to relax.
Yeah.
Relax, relax, relax. You hear it all the time. But, so I was one of those kids where I was told this, but no one taught me how to relax. And so I made it a point to figure out how to teach people how to relax. So what we're going to do, wherever you are, I want you to sit up in your chair. And I want you to have an erect posture. I want you to sit up tall with confidence. Whether you feel like you don't have confidence, whether you feel insecure, it does not matter. At this moment in time, you sit up with so much confidence that you feel that something is going to happen. Right? And then what I want you to do, as you maintain this posture, I want you to rotate your shoulders back and stick that chest out and hold your head up high. You are somebody that's important, that's incredible, and you are a gift. And that is why you are here, and that is why you are present. Relax. In order for you to understand how to relax, you have to understand the opposite of relaxation. And the opposite of relaxation is tension. And so a lot of times we hold so much tension in our bodies, we don't even know what's normal. We don't even know that we're tense. So what we're going to do, we're going to practice an exercise where you're going to inhale. I'm going to demonstrate for you. You're going to inhale like this, as deep as possible. And you're going to hold your breath at the top. And when you hold your breath at the top, I want you to clench your fist. I want you to grit your teeth, make these funny facial motions and movements, and clench every single thing, your upper abdominal area. 2, 1, and then you exhale, elongating your exhale, and you allow yourself to relax. Let that tension go. And you'll start to feel your relaxation happening. So what I want you to do, I want you to sit up straight, close your eyes if they're not already closed. And I want you to inhale as deep as possible. Inhale. And right now, what I want you to do, I want you to clench that, just the upper torso. Clench, 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 clench. Open your mouth and with control, relax, and let all the air from inside of you out. Let it go. Now inhale and exhale. We're going to do that one more time. And this time, I want you to clench your whole body. I want you to tense even your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, your toes, everything. Okay? Clench your fists, everything. Tighten it up. Everyone inhale as deep as possible. Hold your breath at the top. Now I want you to clench tight, tight, clench. 3, 2, 1. Relax everything. Let it go and exhale. Now inhale and exhale. Now while we're here, for the next 30 seconds, all that I want you to do is just count your exhales. Nothing more, just your exhales. Every time you exhale, you're going to count that silently in your head. And that's the only thing that I want you to focus on. Let's begin. I want you to inhale and a nice relaxing exhale. Now wiggle your nose and wiggle your toes, and slowly and gently open your eyes and come out of your practice. Were you able to focus on just your exhales?
Yeah.
Nice.
Felt
You
awesome.
have control of your mind. When you can have control of your breath, then you start to gain control of your emotions, which is your energy in motion. So the breath is life. And when you understand that the breath is life, you can start learning how to control your breath. And when you exhale and elongate the exhale, you're sending a signal to your brain that you are calm, which calms your nerves, which then calms your breath and allows for you to be in control. So thank you so much for allowing me to share that with you.
Oh, Prince, that was so beautiful. And it's amazing. What do we do? Like 30 seconds of breathing and like 30 seconds of clenching. And I feel better. I feel different. I notice the change of state. So I hope everybody listening today who engaged in that exercise felt that too. I just want to thank you, Prince Daniels Jr. You were just awesome today. Loved everything that you had to share. You know, for me, there were a few big takeaways, which we started talking about being an athlete, the tremendous pressure that athletes are under, and the first thing I took away was really that athletes are humans first. Whether your athlete is a 10-year-old or a 22-year-old competing in the NFL, or looking to make the big times in the NHL, they are a human being first, and we have to start treating and understanding each other on that level. Really, not only in sport, just across the board. We're humans, and we're also spiritual beings having a human experience. When you stop thinking and you stop moving, and you just get present for a moment, you'll notice, okay, like, I am not my brain, I am not my body. What am I? We are our spirits. We're spiritual people having this human incredible life, that we all need to make a paradigm shift when it comes to sport, athletes, athletics, and really start understanding that not only are these people first, but we have to find ways to create a different kind of culture in sport that moves beyond just the power side, and develops the peace side that Prince so aptly. I love that. Really taking that away. That we got the power, the drive, the ambition, the go, but we also have the peace, which is the groundedness, which is the clarity of thought. And we need both. We need both to be at our potential, not just as people, not just as after sport, but we need it during sport. That we need to educate each other. One of the things that Prince said that I truly believe, that it starts with each of us as human beings, as coaches, as parents. If we want to do differently, if we want our athletes to develop good emotional, social, psychological skills, we have to first look at ourselves. We've got to hold up the mirror, do our own personal work, get curious about ourselves, practice some of these things that we were talking about today: meditation, yoga, breath work, mindfulness, journaling, whatever it is that brings you back into this present moment, and brings out that peace side of you, that gives you that clarity of thinking, and that holistic approach to life, which is what we want. We want to develop whole human beings in our young people and in our athletes, because at the end of the day, it's gonna make the world a better place, because these athletes who have the world stage are gonna start instigating more deeper, more philosophical dialogue around what it means to be not just an athlete, but what it means to be a human being. So thank you, everybody who joined us today. Thank you, Prince, for this amazing conversation. So appreciative.
Thank you so much. And so much gratitude. Like, I'm in joy. Get it? I'm in joy right now.
I'm so get it. I'm so picking up what you're putting down there. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, so thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that we can make a difference in people's lives and impact them with not only our words, but our spirit and our hearts. Because there's an athlete that's out there that's struggling and they feel that there's no way out, but there always is. Like there's always a way out. Always. This is what I tell people, not athletes, but people in general. Whenever you're looking to go up, go within. Because whenever you go up, you create a different vantage point. You create a different perspective. And it's just like being on an airplane, right? When you're on ground level, everything seems extremely big. But when you are in the air and you're 30,000 feet above ground, everything looks so small. And so when you can look at your problems like that, those problems become insignificant.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. So get some perspective, and the last parting word for any of you struggling out there is reach out, get some help, connect to our platform, connect to the helplines that are on there. None of us have to struggle alone, and there's always a way out. There's always a way forward, no matter what you're struggling with. That's our message at Unsinkable. It's our message at Unsinkable Youth. It's Prince's message today. And thank you again, Good Life Fitness and Sun Life, for making today possible. So appreciate this conversation. Goodbye, everybody, and thanks very much.